Hi, good morning. My name is Sheriff Christopher Conley. I'd like to do a press release from my office. I am announcing the formation of a task force to investigate mortgage fraud throughout Carroll County. Criminal fraud. There are thousands of property owners throughout the county that may be affected. During the past year, there have been many events that have come to my attention or I have been involved with that affect property owners. Property being foreclosed on that were owned outright, financial institutions that staked claim to a property but did not have a deed, note, or mortgage history, persons who owned property and were told they were in arrears on a mortgage they paid. A common thread in each case is there was no accountability by the financial institution. No one to present a reply to, no decision maker to speak with in each and every case. Last month, I learned 51 banking institutions filed for bankruptcy protection in federal district court on 14 May 2012. Do any of these banks or their constituent banks have property interests in Carroll County? Do Carroll County property owners have an interest as a creditor or an affected party? What have the banks requested relative to mortgages that they present as assets? Additionally, source documents include U.S. Subcommittee report on the financial crisis published in 2011 and continuing, from chaired by Senator Levin, I believe he's out of Michigan. Louisiana parishes have sued for damages under RICO statutes. The same corporations are doing business in this county. The Attorney General of Delaware, son of the Vice President, is seeking damages for destruction of the reliability of public records and deeds. The U.S. Comptroller, representing 14 federal regulatory agencies, issued cease and desist orders to the very organizations that do business in Carroll County. They have seized nothing. The indicators that your title to your property may be subjected to fraud include the following. The property was purchased or financed or refinanced after January 1997. The property was purchased or financed or refinanced after January 1997, and the mortgage servicing company, the company that you direct payments to, has changed. There have been inaccurate inquiries from financial institutions relative to your mortgage. The bottom page of page 1 of your mortgage has the following statement. New Hampshire mortgage, single family, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, uniform instrument, MERS modified. If you have experienced any of the above, or you have information from any source you would like to share, I request you email if possible or write a letter. The contact information is Carroll County Sheriff at carrollcountynh.net. In your communication, please indicate all the following. The legal names of the property owners or borrowers, physical address and the type of property, the mailing address of the property, the condition that makes you request that we make an inquiry, and an email address to contact you. I recommend you contact us at your earliest convenience, but within 30 days, if at all possible. This office is in need of volunteer assistance to study and review the data and information. If you have an interest or possess relevant skill sets, please call me direct. I can be reached at 539-2284 or christopher.conley@carrollcountynh.net. The events that bring us here today are complex, ambiguous, and veiled. It is probative that there is embedded criminal fraud. We need to shine the light on everything. In closing, people have an absolute right to be protected in their homes, and their homes to be protected. That's the end of my statement. If you had a couple quick questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
So you said that potentially thousands of property owners may be affected. But can you put a specific total on the number that you can confirm are affected?
That's an excellent question, and no, I can't. It would really be based upon what individual experiences are, and not having the ins and outs of some of the bank processes. I have absolutely no idea, to be honest with you.
And not being overly familiar with the operations of a larger investigation that's clearly, I think, not just focused on Carroll County, but a bigger issue you touched based on many other parts of the country and these larger institutions. How does this task force go about trying to correct any potential wrongs?
Well, I think, the first thing is to get very learned people in the field, or people that have an interest in learning, and find out what has happened. I think the biggest dilemma in the entire process is we don't know what we don't know. And I think if we can cut through those layers and be able to make some concrete decisions, then we can look towards taking the next step.
And how were you first made aware of potential fraud?
I would say it was based on several, and I'm not going to put out the exact number because situations are actually ongoing, but people having very complex, convoluted situations. They live right here in the county, and after I started looking into it, the more that I found out, the more complex and ambiguous it became. And I think anybody with a law enforcement, from a law enforcement perspective, would see that there were all the ingredients of fraud there. But where does it start? Where does it end? Where is it right now? And that's even talked about on the Wall Street and the financial crisis. I will give you the links, for the same information that I used on this stuff, so you'll have it as a reference.
And this task force, can you tell us how? I'm assuming it's not formed yet. It's kind of in the early stages. Do you know how big it's going to be, or who's going to be involved in the task force?
That's an excellent question. I really don't have solid answers for that. I would think the main requirement would be for somebody to have an interest in it. I don't think they would have to necessarily bring a level of expertise. However, we would need that, whether it's in banking or finance or mortgage selling or just the entire process. But I think there's so many pieces to it that anybody that would have an interest in helping would have an interest, could certainly bring value to a task force like this.
Do you know how much money people in Carroll County are out of as a result of potential fraud? Is there, or do we even know if anyone is even out a single dollar, if that's confirmed?
I think by the very nature of fraud, I think it's very difficult to detect, and that's the magic in it. I mean, if we knew it, there are law enforcement and regulatory agencies all over the place that would take action. I just think that the main tasking is to find out where it is and what it is.
Do you think that this is the first time that the county has seen fraud of this nature? Is this something that's new to the county?
I've been sheriff since 2009. I really started Well, this started coming to my attention for approximately between the last 9 and 12 months. But it really came to head, when I learned of this bankruptcy proceeding. I believe it's very significant, and I don't know how it affects the county, or if people would even have any awareness that they're tied into that in any manner. So based upon those two things, and that was just in May, and there's actually a date that is fast approaching. People want to deal with that bankruptcy situation. But I don't know how that impacts this.
Okay. So this is more of a, let's dive into it and really flesh it out and see how bad the fraud really is within the
That's right.
county? This is more of like an examination of it, I guess, or a research period
Yes.
into it. Okay.
Chris, I don't know much about banking laws, but I would assume that a lot of those are like federal laws. And I question what the jurisdiction is at the county government level, what kind of impact you could make on these problems.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's a shared jurisdiction. However, when you think of property, I mean, the property is located by an individual in Carroll County. So whatever other government entity, organization, or anything has an interest in this, I strongly state that the county does also, by virtue of the fact that people live here.
Will you be looking at the Effingham example from a couple of years ago?
Not sure what that was.
Remember the couple who had their home taken by LPS Services and JP Morgan?
Yes, and that's one that I didn't think of, but I believe that was a case where a home was owned outright, and then the company that actually did the foreclosing, did the actual mechanic end of it, went to the wrong house, and they started to remove property. Wasn't that the case?
Correct.
Yeah. That's another case where, where the mortgage and the title and the communication was not quite right.
But that's an example of what you're looking at.
Yeah, it would be that type of thing, but there are so many variables of that, and it's very situational.
Chris, is this something that you've had discussions with any other counties in the state, or do you think this is Carroll County specific?
No, I know it's of great concern in Grafton County. I had an opportunity to speak with the registrar in Essex County, Massachusetts, John T. O'Brien, where I spoke to one of his staff there. I know the Attorney General has some sort of visibility on it, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. But there hasn't been any cross-pollination between law enforcement on it.
So you haven't gone to the AG's office, or the AG's office hasn't come to you
Right.
at any point so far, pending, I guess, obviously, what the task force drums up?
Right.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the Linda Green signatures that have been circulated around? Basically, there's a company called DocX, which forged documents all over the country, and one of the most common signatures was Linda Green. There are Linda Green signatures here.
I have heard that term, Linda Green, and it's always used in the context of robo-signing and that type of thing. There are so many variables to this that it's you're not sure what impacts what, but it all seems to come together too.
Chris, could you dumb it down for me, and I'll say for us as a blanket shell? What is it that you are afraid that homeowners are being conned into or being taken advantage of? How?
I think one of the ultimate challenges will be, or something that has to be found out, is that if a person owns a home, or at some point if they own a property outright, will that person actually have a deed and a mortgage and not have to confront, someone questioning the ownership of the home? Or if they go to sell it, will the integrity of that ownership be there? I don't know, and I'm not sure if anybody can answer that question. And it is critical. I mean, home ownership is a foundation to everything in society. I mean, I'm not sure what the total number of homes in Carroll County is, or, single family. It's probably somewhere around 18 to 20,000, something like that. So this is a small county and a very rural county. This is a good place to check it out.
Chris, what was the exact nature of the initial complaints? What happened? What did the people tell you? What situation did they describe? Were they couldn't find their title? What was the...
Well, I really think the common thread was people in a situation could not get answers. Who do I call? Who's the decision maker? Where's the accountability at? How do I find out what they're asking, and then how do I respond to it? I would say that's a common theme on that. But each case is somewhat different.
Is there a specific bank that is popping up more than others? Or, because you had mentioned, correct me here, you had mentioned some 50 banks. So is it any of those 50, or is there...
I believe that the practices, tend to be either similar or even uniform. So I guess some banks have a reputation for, having a larger share of the mortgage business, but I'm not sure what the answers to those questions are. But they are good questions.
And do you think that this county being primarily rural, Grafton County, similar ordeal, is that... Are we looking too much into the socioeconomic factor there, or the layout of the land, as opposed to, say,
I think,
County South?
Well, no, the reason why I brought that up, I believe in a smaller rural area, you would have a more manageable opportunity to try to define the issue.
Okay.
I think that's my main reason for saying that.
Okay.
As compared to a, major metropolitan area.
But you can't confirm right now. So it's not fair for us to go out and say homeowners are facing this type of criminal fraud. That's not confirmed, correct?
No, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this has to be looked into.
Okay.
This needs to be addressed by law enforcement and other government agencies.
Okay.
In the cases that we've seen, we've had companies called LPS Services, and we've had JP Morgan. Now, do you imagine that you might get some of the sort of the lower end people, or are you going to chase this all the way up to the top? All the way? Are you going to go down all the way? Are you going to go all the way down the rabbit hole here?
If we ever get to the point where we're doing a perp walk, you're going to be the first guy to call. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I mean, there seems to be some financial mechanics of this, where if one financial institution is, passing, certain properties off to another. But as far as what the mechanics of that is and who the decision makers are, those are fairly important things to find out.
Now, how big will this task force be? Is it going to be 6 people, 20 people, 50 people, however many people volunteer?
I'm hoping people will contact me, and then I can put that information out, fairly soon.
But is it limited, in other words?
Well, I think anytime you have something like that, you have to, limit the number of participants, because you have to spend time defining the issue, seeking information, and then that group coming together. It's a process. We certainly haven't done it here. If any other organization would get involved in this, I'd be more than happy to have that assistance, or even hand this over.
Is there a timetable that you're looking to work under in the next 6 months, formulate a force, and then begin your investigation, or is this a year out? What's the timetable that you're looking at?
That's a good question, and I don't know what the answer to that is, but that'll be one of the first things that really has to be decided on.
And you said you have a copy, correct? Of
Yes.
the press release? Okay.
Well, thanks for coming, I
Thank you
appreciate it.
very much.
Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the Consumer Protection Bureau
Right.
of the AG's office. Now, the AG's office is sort of like the state equivalent to the county attorney's office. Where in the county attorney's office, if somebody gets arrested for a felony in the county, they bring it to the county attorney's office and they prosecute at the Superior Court. Now, does the AG's office, do they investigate criminal complaints like a law enforcement agency, like the Sheriff's Department or local PD, or do they wait for a local law enforcement agency to turn something up and then they prosecute it at the court?
I think they certainly can, take information from a law enforcement agency. But it really comes down to what their capabilities and their assets are. If they have that type of, staffing to be able to deal with things, and investigate them and find out. I don't know what the answers to those questions are.
Do you think somebody from the state ought to be on this task force? So,
I think
Using that as an advisor?
any regulatory agency that interacts with anything to do with this process, whether it be Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the SEC, the banking commissions, state or federal, they should all be involved in this because it's big, and until we as a people get hands on it, we can't just let this thing run wild. And I think if you read some of those lawsuits or some of those court petitions, I think they'll come screaming out at you.
Sure. All right, Sheriff. That answers my
All right,
question.
then,
Thanks.
keep the faith, buddy. If I get more answers, I'll certainly pass them on.